But one of the things I've always believed in is let's take the complicated and make it simple. And if we take the complicated, we make it simple, and then we replicate it over and over and over again, then you have no chance for failure. Hi, I'm Mark Leader, 39-year veteran of the real estate industry, and I want to thank you for taking the time to stop by my YouTube channel. I have a question for you. Have you ever heard the saying that listings are the way to the top? Have you ever heard the saying that listings are the name of the game? Well, if you've heard either one of those sayings, then you're obviously talking to somebody who's been very experienced in the real estate industry. And I take it from someone who's been in the business 39 years. If you want to make more money, you want to do it in less time, and you want to have more pleasure, you want to enjoy your life a little bit more, then you've got to focus on bringing in more listings. No matter what's happening out there in the economy, you have to understand and always stay focused that listings are the name of the game. The question then is, how do we generate more listings? Well, as long as I've been in the business, gang, there's always been a challenge with the realtors generating listings. Oh, it's not that they don't want them, they do. It's not that they wouldn't like to have the opportunity to have more listings, because they know that's where the money comes in the real estate industry. But where the real challenge comes for most salespeople to be successful as listing agents is not the listing appointment itself, it's the lead generation and the conversion of those leads. So today's video, I want to talk a little bit about lead generation. And as long as I've been in the business, gang, lead generation, there's 3 specific ways to generate leads. And some of you are going to say, only 3 more? Each of those ones that I'm going to share with you have things underneath them that you're going to have to do. But one of the things I've always believed in is let's take the complicated and make it simple. And if we take the complicated, we make it simple, and then we replicate it over and over and over again, then you have no chance for failure. I shouldn't say maybe no chance for failure. You might have failure if you don't give yourself time to build the necessary muscles through replicating the activities. You see, gang, whether we like it or not, the way life works, we always got to do things that maybe we don't want to do in order to get the things that we want to do. A silly example of that is, something as simple as going to the gym. Myself personally, I try to go 3 or 4 times a week. I try to walk at least 8 to 10 miles a week. Try to slow down what gravity's causing. But I have to tell you something. Almost every time I go, as I'm driving over there, I get this feeling, there's so many other things I could be doing. And it's like the car wants to, and I have to hold it in place, and I gotta get into the gym parking lot. I gotta get out, I gotta grab that bag, and I take it one step at a time to get into the gym. And the hardest part, the last part, is doing up my running shoes and getting on that treadmill. But I can tell you what, gang, an hour and a half later, after I've done my cardio and I've done some really light weights, you feel great. You feel great. And that's just one example about what we got to go through life sometimes to get to the good. So when we're talking about this thing called building inventory, we talk about this thing, listings are the name of the game. It all starts off with having an effective lead generation system. So what are those 3 types of lead generation systems that you might put in place? Well, the first one might be what we call passive forms of lead generation. When it comes to passive forms of lead generation, I have to tell you something. Each of these different types of lead generation we're going to talk about here, depending on the stage you're at in your real estate career, will be depending on the ones that you employ the most. So for example, when I talk about passive forms of lead generation, this might be something as simple as buying a couple of billboards in the neighborhood that you want to specialize in, or those bus shelters. Put your ad up in the bus shelter. And I can remember a national speaker one time, he was making fun a little bit about that. And he says, well, I don't look for customers that ride buses. And I guess maybe that's funny, I'm not sure. But what I do know is there's tens of thousands of cars that drive by there every day. And the whole idea that realtor was trying to do was to build name recognition or name credibility. So you could do like institutional advertising, billboards, sides of buses, maybe put a ad on the side of a hockey rink or at the back of a baseball diamond, or maybe sponsor some local teams to get your name out there. Maybe have a drip campaign to stay in touch. But generally speaking, passive forms of lead generation are used for two reasons. The first one is for name recognition or building name credibility within your marketplace, so that when someone thinks about a realtor, they think about you. The second reason you might use passive forms of lead generation is to stay top of mind with your past customers. Now, when it comes to passive forms of lead generation, except for an email drip campaign maybe, there is one thing they all have in common. You got to spend some money to make some money. That's just the way it is. The people that are doing that, they are spending money in the hopes that the phone is going to ring. And I guess if you've got a big enough book of business, I guess maybe if your pockets are deep enough, that's a good way of doing it. Certainly there is no bad forms of lead generation. There's just some that I think are good, better, and best. The second way that we may want to talk about lead generation is what I might call proactive lead generation. And proactive lead generation, I don't care what stage of the business you're at, we all got to do it. Just depending on where you're at will depend on how much you'll have to do. You know, if you got a big book of business, proactive lead generation may be calling or doing drop-bys on your past client base. And because of your past client base, your hit ratio should be a little bit better than most if you've treated them well. So we could call that proactive. In other words, you're picking up the phone, you're calling your past customers, you're doing drop-bys, you're being proactive in maintaining those and building those relationships. But along with being proactive forms of lead generation, you could do door knocking. Now, some of you are going to say, door knocking, Mark, how many people are home anymore? Well, like everything else, it depends on your marketplace. You know, a very good friend of mine and someone who's been in the real estate business, oh God, I think I first met him maybe 25 years ago down in Miami, Les Norton. And if you talk to Les, he works at the Great Kai's company down there. If you talk to Les, he'd tell you that his whole career is built around door knocking. Absolutely loves it. Has some really nice, fashionable dress running shoes, dresses well, has his door hangers, has great conversations in the areas that he specializes in. He absolutely loves it, and he does it many, many times through the week. Now, of course, the flip side to that is he is in Miami. Or Fort Lauderdale area. So the weather is better, but it is what it is. So you could do your drop-bys. You could do pure door knock. You should be working your for sale by owners. That's being proactive. You know, think about this, gang. The for sale by owners, they've got a sign on their front lawn saying, hey, I want to sell my house. And yet realtors, they don't want to work them. But I'm going to teach you in the videos ahead how to walk in to those for sale by owners and walk out with the listing if you choose to. By the way, if you're enjoying this video up to this point, I have to do that shameless thing. Would you like it? Hit subscribe and share for me, please. That would be absolutely wonderful and appreciated. So you could do your drop-bys, stay in touch with your past customers. You could go out and do door knocking. You could work those FSBOs, which you should be working FSBOs every day. That would be proactive. Another form of proactive lead generation would be working those expired listings. Now, I know my friends across Canada, the Canadian Real Estate Association, created this bylaw or part of their code of ethics, whatever we want to call it, that you're not supposed to call expired listings in Canada. Who came up with that idea? I got no idea. And why the real estate community would allow the powers to be to push that through, I got no idea. I think it's a poor rule. I think it's hurting the consumer, but anyhow, different video for a different day. But my friends in the US, you should be working those expireds every day, gang. And you know, one of the companies that are really good at getting expireds and FSBO leads for you is RedX. And if you go to my website, you'll see a link to RedX. The website's markleader.com, and check out RedX, gang. And if you go through my website and you decide to use their service, you'll even get some discounts and some bonuses because you're associated with Mark Leader. So your drop-bys, your door knocks, your expireds, your FSBOs, And the last one is, gang, is you got to master that phone. You got to do what they call cold calling. Now, some of you are going to go, oh, I'd never do cold calling in my life. Well, your call, your call. Of course, my job as a trainer, as a speaker in the real estate industry is to lay the buffet out in front of you. You can choose what you want to take from the buffet, take what you want, leave the rest. But you know, back during COVID, when no one was coming out to seminars, no one was coming out to webinars, no one was booking speakers because we couldn't put together an assembly. The government didn't allow us to, obviously. I did something that I'll bet you no other professional speaker or trainer that's been in the business as long as I've been, and that is I reinstated my real estate license. I reinstated my real estate license in where I live. Nobody knew me as a realtor, and within the first 90 days, just by hitting the phones, I generated in excess of $100,000 in GCI in my first 90 days. And I'd be happy to prove that to anybody. I would be happy to debate anybody who tells me that they don't think hitting the phones, you'll make a six-figure income, because I will teach you and show you that you're absolutely wrong. See, the difference between proactive and passive forms of lead generation, gang, is passive, you got to spend money. Proactive, you got to put effort and time into it. You got to roll up those sleeves. You got to get in the trenches, and you got to master the dialogue technique and process in order to convert those conversations that you have into an appointment, into a listing appointment. Now, understand something. Every form of lead generation is about playing the law of averages. Sales is about playing the law of averages. Passive forms of lead generation is playing the law of averages. How many cars drive by that billboard? You hope someone's going to call you. Proactive is playing the law of averages. How many doors you got to knock on? I don't know, but I do know the next door is probably the one. How many calls you got to make? I don't know, but probably the next call is the one. How many FSBOs you got to call? How many expired you got? I don't know, but the law of averages says that if you call enough, you knock on enough doors, you have enough conversations, you can't help but find somebody who wants to sell their house. It's just the way it is, gang. And then we've got this thing called hyperactive lead generation. And hyperactive lead generation is online lead generation. And there's some challenges with online lead generation, but I tell you what, those few years that I was back on the street, licensed, out selling, so proud that RE/MAX put me into their Hall of Fame again, or not again, I guess, but for the second or third time, I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter. But what matters is this, gang, is that during that period of time, I did a lot of work with online lead generation, and I was able to get my conversion rate up to as high some months as 8 and 10%. The national average is 0.5%, maybe 1%. I can tell you my students that report back to me have somewhere between a 3 and 4% conversion rate. Again, the more leads you get online, the higher the chance you're going to find one that's going to convert. Well, I wouldn't buy leads. Truthfully, I wouldn't do that. But I would put together an effective pay-per-click or an effective online lead generation system. And in order to do that, I would let the specialists, someone who specializes in that, do that. I want to thank you for being here with me today. In the videos ahead, we're going to get into more detail about passive, proactive, and hyperactive lead generation. I'm going to teach you some dialogue technique and process in order to be strong at any one of those. But what's most important for me today to leave you with this thought. 2 things. Number 1 is always remember this business is about inventory. The agent that books the most appointments are the ones that are going to bring in the most listings. And number 2, no matter what anybody says to you, today's going to be a great day. You know, when 70% of the people in the real estate industry end up failing within 3 to 5 years, we not only have to navigate the market, but sometimes we have to navigate the people that are around us in the industry. And what I would do right now, gang, is I wouldn't listen to any of the chatter. I wouldn't listen to any of the political rhetoric that's going on. I wouldn't worry about interest rates, unemployment rates. I wouldn't worry about any of that. I'd stay focused on having those conversations. And the more conversations you have, the more opportunity you're going to have to go over and meet with people about listing and selling their house. Again, if you've enjoyed this video with me, please hit subscribe, like, and share. And this is Mark Leader, and I want to thank you for being here with me today. And remember, gang, listings are the way to the top. I'll see you all soon. Please subscribe below to receive all the videos and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Mark Leader. See you soon.